Nearly 2 months of the war in Ukraine, nearly 60 days, and Russia isn't backing off. In a big development, Moscow test-fired a new intercontinental ballistic missile, and Russian President Vladimir Putin used that opportunity to again issue a warning to the West.
On 20th April, Russia test-launched its intercontinental ballistic missile, Sarmat, believed to be adding more power to its nuclear arsenal. US Congressional Research Service claimed that Russia is expected to deploy Sarmat with 10 or more warheads on each missile.
Dear comrades, I congratulate you on the successful test firing of the Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missile. This is a big significant event in the development of advanced weapon systems for the Russian army. The new system has the highest tactical and technical characteristics and is able to overcome all the missile defense capabilities.
The heavy intercontinental ballistic missile Sarmat has been under development for years now. Its test launch at this crucial juncture of war is an ominous sign, and the Russian president is well aware of it.
It will have no equivalents in the world for a long time. This truly unique weapon will enhance the military potential of our armed forces and will reliably provide security for Russia from external threats and will make others who, in the heat of frantic, aggressive rhetoric, try to threaten our country, think twice.
The intercontinental ballistic missile was test-launched from Plesetsk in northwest Russia and hit targets in the Kamchatka Peninsula in the Far East. Bureau Report, India Today.
And we've been getting you the biggest voices here on India Today to decode exactly what's been playing out in Ukraine. We had a conversation also with the respected Harvard professor Ravi Abdulal, who said that a tactical strike is still very much possible. This comes after India Today also got you that big world exclusive with the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who played down the possibility of this becoming nuclear.
Tactical nuclear strike is a possibility. Words that will echo through war rooms across the world. Not just random analysis, but the words of one of the world's most respected Russia watchers.
Engage with the world.
Harvard professor Ravi Abdulal, director of Davis Center for Russian and Eurasian Studies. An academic whose views on the world's biggest story is one of the most sought after.
Is not about Russia versus Ukraine, but about Russia versus the West. And for that logic, we need to think about what are the ways in which Russia and NATO could come into direct conflict that could lead to a nuclear exchange between the great powers, as opposed to a single tactical nuclear strike in Ukraine.
Professor Abdulal's world-exclusive interaction with India Today adds ominous urgency to the aura of nuclear threat surrounding Russia and Ukraine. His words come just a day after Russia's foreign minister, in his only interview so far in the war, played down the nuclear threat that has emanated consistently from Moscow.
The Russian military has these hypersonic missiles, which are good at evading missile defense systems. It has thermobaric weapons, the so-called vacuum bombs. As far as we know from the outside, the Russian military has used one of each, probably to demonstrate what they can do, but have not yet escalated to the widespread use of these really terrifying weapons, much less the possibility of a tactical nuclear strike on the territory of Ukraine.
There could be no winners in a nuclear war, and therefore nuclear war must never be launched.
Obviously,
Professor Abdulal is the second top-tier American academic to highlight the nuclear threat emerging from Russia. Last month, Princeton University's Dr. Zia Mia echoed the fear.
This is part of the script of the nuclear age. So nuclear weapon states say this because they can, because they have nuclear weapons.
Away from the nuclear threat, Professor Abdulal also sees Ukraine's current weapon levels as only enough to keep its head above water.
The Ukrainian military, and indeed the Ukrainian civilians who have been waging this counteroffensive against the Russians, have perhaps been armed enough to achieve a kind of stalemate, though not enough to win the war.
More ominously, the Harvard professor predicts the longer the stalemate, the more destructive things could get, with newer weapons entering the combat mix.
But the longer the stalemate lasts, the more likely there will be escalation on the Russian side, using weapons that they have mostly not yet used in ways that will be difficult for the rest of us to watch and horrible for the Ukrainians to endure.
With only some indicators on where the war is headed and what the endgame is, the Harvard guru makes a pronouncement that provides shape to the next steps. That there's little chance of the war winding down soon.
President Putin has gambled his historical legacy on this war, which means that there is no backing down. There will be no end to this war until the Russian president feels that he can narrate some sort of achievement, both militarily and politically, from the war.
On India Today, the most sought-after academic and strategic minds provide their views first, allowing us and you, the viewer, navigate this emerging conflict. With Rahul Kawal in Boston, Bureau Report, India Today.
And in a massive and long-awaited boost to Ukraine's defense arsenal, the country has received fighter aircraft from a NATO ally. This has been confirmed by Pentagon. The United States hasn't clarified which country, but it's being largely and widely speculated that it is Slovakia, neighboring country to Ukraine, which also operates MiG-29 fighters, very similar to the ones in service in Ukraine.
For 2 months now, Ukraine has received hell from the air. An uninterrupted campaign of Russian airstrikes pounding many towns and cities into oblivion. Ukraine has managed to shoot down its fair share of Russian jets, but has persistently pleaded with the West to supply it with desperately needed fighter aircraft. And now, 8 weeks into the war, its prayers have at least partially been answered. The Pentagon on Wednesday revealed a recent transfer of aviation equipment to Ukraine.
I would just say, without getting into what other nations are providing, that they have received additional platforms and parts to be able to increase their fleet size, their aircraft fleet size. I think I'd leave it at that.
It's not hard to guess what the Pentagon spokesperson was referring to. Recently, the governments of Bulgaria, Poland and Slovakia had expressed willingness to transfer their MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine. But these haven't really fructified so far. But according to reports on the ground, dismantled MiG-29s have likely arrived by the land route from neighboring Slovakia now. Importantly, as clarified by the Ukrainian Air Force, these aren't flight-worthy aircraft, but rather supplied in order to make available spares and components to Ukraine's existing MiG-29 fleet.
There are no new aircraft, but these are spare parts which will give a boost to their fleet, existing fleet of fighting jets. And considering the way things have been going, you know, any help for Ukraine at this point of time is going to be of a great significance because it's very clear that this war isn't ending. The end is nowhere to be seen.
This would make Ukraine's dwindling fighters more available and more flight-worthy. The actual move may not be the game changer that Ukraine is hoping for, but any boost to its crippled air power will be very welcome to the defending nation. Meanwhile, Russia, which has warned against NATO's direct involvement in the conflict, hasn't officially reacted to the move, but could use the development to escalate further or ramp up its own air attacks in eastern Ukraine.
a little too late in the day for Ukraine, because Ukraine has been asking for it for a very long time, and it's only coming now. But the other line of thought over here in Moscow is also that Russia is not just looking at NATO entering Ukraine. Russia is also looking at how NATO is enhancing capabilities of the Ukrainian forces. If the capabilities come to stand at a point where there will be massive damage to the Russian forces, then in all probability Russia is going to use all its force and might.
As the Russia-Ukraine conflict gets set to begin its third month, could much of the new fighting happen in the skies over Ukraine? The countdown has begun. With Abhishek Bhalla in Sumy, Ukraine, and Geeta Mohan in Moscow, Bureau Report, India Today.